Hello. Just wanted to share this process of upscaling images with my Google Colab and Stable Diffusion. So I'll just show a little preview of what we're going to be able to create. On the left is the starting image. You can see that it's pretty low res, and then on the right, this is the upscaled final result. There were some steps to get there, so we'll just see what those are. But you can see that everything is pretty cool when it gets all up-resed. Drapery is a lot better, and plants are looking pretty sweet. Some nice bark there. It's not going to do a good job on everything. Like the background I have left pretty much the same in terms of the detail. But for those up close little detailed areas, it's pretty sweet. So what do you actually need to get started? You're going to need the diffusion weights, and you'll have to put them on the Google Drive to work with my Colab. And you can find the Colab file just in the description. And you're also going to need to have a low-res version of your final image, which I just showed you guys. It's better if you have it in a final state, which means all the detail is there in terms of composition. And it just doesn't have to be huge resolution yet. It could be something pretty small, even under 1000 pixels. And we'll just take a look at that stuff. And then optionally, we're going to need Photoshop to do some edits, which I'll show you guys. You don't have to use gigapixel, but sometimes a gigapixel does a better job at upscaling the initial image. We're going to be using a real ESRGAN since it's free and all that stuff. It's also part of the Colab. How I created this image was image to image with Stable Diffusion. And you can read about that on my Reddit post. I talked about how I created this one. I might make a video on this workflow later. I started with an old high school drawing and just going through the image to image to get to the final point. So yeah, take a look at that if you're curious. Okay, now let's take a look at the actual Colab file. First thing you're going to want to do is open the bonus tool section, and this has the grid upscaling, which is the main focus of this video. And then there's also the real ESRGAN. Someone else has developed this tool, and I have more info in the credits, so you can check it out. Alright, first thing we're going to do is use real ESRGAN to just up-res our initial image just a little bit. It's not necessary, but I just recommend doing this. So you want to hit run and choose file, and we're going to start with start image right here. You can see that it's not very big, it's only 960 pixels. And when this is done, it'll show up under Stable Diffusion here and then results. It's going to actually give a message. Yeah, it says that it's safe into results. So from here you can always just download it, but I was going to move it from there to the init image folder. This is the folder where I put all my images that I'm working with in my Colab. So if you double click, you can see a little preview. You can see that it's definitely not 900 pixels anymore, and it has upscaled a little bit. The thing is, if we download it, it'll be easier to see. We zoom in. So, I mean, it's still going to be pretty blurry because it doesn't add extra information where it doesn't really exist. It does add extra info in the face, simply because they have some face recognition tool built in, but everything else is pretty much, it's just less pixelated, but it's not really adding any more information that wasn't already there. So that's what my texture No, it's not texture. Grid upscaling tile generation tool. That's what my tool does. It actually uses Stable Diffusion to upscale different tiles in the image. So what you're going to want to do is open it up, and this is basically all the settings that you're going to use, and we'll get through those later. But what we're going to look at first is the grid preview. You can see that I have the image from previously in here, but I'm just going to, the name has changed, so I'm going to have to put in the new name. Alright, so here you can set the, well, you can choose to set the width, but we'll just see what it looks like without changing it. So this is the current image and how it would get split by the tile generator. You can see it tells you the number of tiles and how many prompts there would be. So what that means is there's going to be 3 horizontally and then 4 rows. So you get 12 tiles. These tiles are a little bit cut off, but it still counts as 1 tile. And 48 prompts, where that comes from is it actually splits the tiles in half. It's hard to show it like this, so I'll just go to Photoshop. So what it would actually do is it would start with this tile right here. Let me zoom in. Actually, I'm just gonna. Okay, so this is easy to see, hopefully. So it's gonna start with this as 1 tile, and then instead of going over here, it's actually gonna go from here to the halfway point, and then it'll go here, and it'll go halfway again. So the reason why it does this is because it's gonna eventually have to blend the edges of each image. So this way it's gonna have all the information in each tile, and then we just erase the seam. And it's also gonna give you some alternative ideas that you can choose from. The only downside is you're gonna end up with a lot more going down the rows. It would go like this. So you're going to end up with a lot more tiles than you would think, and that would actually mean that you'd have to technically make a different prompt for each one. But I have a setting where you can use the prompt from one of these main tiles and it'll apply that to the next half tile. It'll hopefully make more sense when we get to that point. So the adjust width, what that can do is you can just set a preset. So when we run this one, it's going to split it evenly 512 by 512. So that's going to be 1024 when you add them up. So this image was from Stable Diffusion, so it's pretty clean in terms of that grid. But it obviously doesn't need to be perfect pixel ratios, because if we set it to something arbitrary, these partial tiles are going to help you. So it doesn't have to be a perfect number. You can keep going up too, but then you're going to have more prompts that you have to fill out. And also, it doesn't really necessarily mean that you get more detail. We'll take a look at that later. What I would recommend doing is I would recommend starting small and then going in passes to upscale. It's going to be a lot easier to write the prompt for larger sections and small ones. But we'll just take a look at that. And if you do want to get crazy like 4096, then you might want to just do it for the upper area or the bottom area. I felt the middle area is mostly backgrounds, so it wasn't really doing much for me. And also the drapery wasn't looking good when I got this close. So that's just something to keep in mind. So now what we can do is just copy this number, and we don't have to look at the preview anymore. We'll just go up to the main tool. So how this works is you would type the name of the drive that you want to save to. I have everything under AI Stable Diffusion HD for the upscaling. So we can just call it a test 3, I guess. Doesn't really matter. It'll just show up here with the other 2 tests. And then the input image, that's going to come from the start point. So if you go here and rename, then you can copy the whole file name and paste it there. The directory you don't really have to change unless you adjust it. That's basically like the init image folder. If you did want to change the folder path, you can just copy path right there and paste it. So adjust initial size, what this does is if we have it off, it'll just look at the width of that image the way it is. But if we wanted to say have the perfect grid ratio that we found out in the grid preview area, then we can just put that number here, make sure that's checked on. And then the reduce prompt count by 4 times. If you have that unchecked, you're going to have to rate a prompt for each tile and then each half tile. So if you have it checked on, you'll just save yourself some time. It won't be as accurate, but I felt like it was good enough for me. So here it would say 6 prompts are required versus 24. And then the width at 1024 is going to look like this. So that's the basic settings. And then these are the basic settings for Stable Diffusion. So the grid ratio, that's actually going to be the final generation size. So the tiles are split 512 by 512, but I have the option to generate them at a larger size just so you can get some more detail out of it. So if you go any higher than 672, it might crash the GPU, so I would stick to this number. And then the scale and steps is up to you. I wouldn't go too high with the steps because it's going to take longer. I like 40 personally. And it's also preference, what sampler you use and all that stuff. The seed, I think, I'm not sure if 0 is random or not. Yeah, I probably wouldn't randomize it too much. It's really up to you to experiment with that. I can't remember. I guess I had it on 0, so we'll just leave it at 0. But if you have -1, it's going to randomize it. So then what else is there? So the init strength, that's the image input strength. That's going to be pretty important. You don't want to go too low. My Colab is the higher number will follow the image closer. So if you have it at 1, it's going to basically be the same as your input image. And 0.7, it's sort of going to be creative, but not too crazy. So anything lower than 0.7 is going to get maybe too crazy. I have the option available in case you wanted to do that for a reason. But if you just want to detail your images, I'd stick to 0.7-ish. Now, moving on to the prompts. I have it set up so instead of typing all this detail per little quadrant, you'll actually use all this text on all of the quadrants, or for consistency. That's pretty sweet, so you don't have to type more than just this subject information. So this would be all of your style and detail, like high resolution, close up, and then that's the typical, that's sort of the prompt that I was using on the original image to image. So yeah, that's what I would put here, and we'll type in the subjects after we hit run. So now we can actually get started. Now it says that it's splitting the images into 24 pieces, and it does that behind the scenes, but It's going to create a new folder called HD, and this is where you can access all the different steps as they come along. You don't have to go in here. It's just, the information is just there in case you actually wanted to get all the split results. I know that the person who inspired me to write this script, they wanted to have the original pieces. So this is how you get to them. That way you can go later, and if you didn't like whatever came from this region, you can always put it through another image to image and you'll get a new result. And it's also numbered. Okay, to explain this pre-grid number better, this is going to be the row, then this is the column. So you can see 001, it's right here. 002, it's right here. And then when we get into row 2, it's going to look like this. So this becomes 002, 001. Yeah, and then it goes down. It's going to be half of 512, and that's why the grid is laid out like this. Okay, so getting back to the little tool. So here you use a text box where you can type and describe what this is. So it could be a forest. Yeah, so you can describe the images one by one here. Another way to do it is if you looked at the grid preview. Let me see if I save it here. Yeah, so if you looked at the grid preview, you can always just type it all in a text file. It's definitely a spell wrong. Alright, so you can type your text also in a text file and copy that. And it says right here, if you want to use a text file instead, type exit. So you can just type exit to skip through this. And the text, as it's getting saved, if you're going to input it through the tool, it's going to end up over here. So I'm just going to paste this and hit save. And now we can actually just copy this path and paste it here. And it'll use all of our text that we described. Alright, so now that we've actually done all the text to describe the grid pieces, it's going to run through with Stable Diffusion. So we can see here's the first tile, and then you'll get to see what the second tile looks like. So that one's actually the halfway point. So we're going to end up with 4 tiles going across. And I'll just speed this one up so that we don't have to wait so long. Alright, now that it's done processing the images, you can see in here there's a post-process grid split. So that's going to store all the generated images, and they're named the same way as, so if we compare the pre-processed ones, yeah, they have the same sort of naming structure. There's just post and pre, and you can see that the post grid one is upscaled a little bit because we set it to 672 pixels instead of 512. And you can also see right here the leaves are a lot more detailed. The face is a little different. Yeah, since I set the seed to 0, this face is the same face that I had generated before, so that's interesting to notice. Alright, so now that it's done, it gives you a message that it copied to Google Drive. And what else we have here is there's an extended tile section that are also numbered the same way. And then there's a final HD PNG. But we don't have to really look at this anymore. We can just move on to Google Drive. So under Google Drive, it's going to be under test 3. So we saved it. And then here's our final result. So yeah, some of the pieces are a little funky, like the knee. So that's where Photoshop is going to come in handy. But you can see that there's no seams, the plants are detailed, things are looking pretty sweet. So those funky bits are pretty unavoidable, so that's why Photoshop is highly recommended. And if you go under tiles, actually I'm going to do this on, okay, so I have installed Google Drive locally, so it's pretty easy for me to get into the folders I need to get to. So I'm just going to copy this test 3 over to my little work area. Alright, and if we get in here under the tile section, it just takes a while to copy from Google Drive. So now we can actually just take a look. So these are the padded image are the tiles arranged where they would be in the final image. So that's pretty helpful when we get into Photoshop for just editing if we need to. You can see how like both of these knees are pretty strange looking, but yeah, this one's less awkward than the other one. Yeah, I don't think any of these knees has turned out very well though, so. Anyway, so what we can do now is, okay, I also would, since we've upscaled the start image here, I would just make sure you download that one. And then we can get into Photoshop for the next step. And just bring in your final HD version. And where is this? Alright, so then here's the upscaled one that wasn't detailed at all. So then you can easily flip back and forth between the base image and the high-res image. And what the workflow is, I have a finished version right here, but we'll just walk through it step by step. So the first thing I would do is just group them. So you have your base image and then your first pass. And what you're going to do is put a mask with this button right here. But yeah, I'm using masks a lot with this Stable Diffusion workflow. And I'm just going to hit Control-I to invert it. And then get an airbrush. So what I start doing here is I just erase. Or I'm going to have to switch to white. So you just paint out areas to reveal details. And you can zoom in a little bit. And then as you're going, you're going to notice that there's some funny stuff happening. Like they added a signature. So then you just go back in with the black color to paint that out. So you're just pushing and pulling the different versions. And you're looking for whatever looks the best. I like to have the base image on first because I feel like it just gives more control over not having any funky business. Yeah, because then you know that the kneecap is definitely going to look good. We won't paint that one in. Like if you went over here and you see that, you just undo. But if you look at, I'm just going to erase this again. If you look at the drapery especially, when you start bringing in the high-res version, it's really sweet what it did. So that's kind of what you're looking for. What looks good and what doesn't. You can also blend pieces. So I think the face might be a good example of where we do that. I don't really like the face that the detailed version made. It might have been because, so that's where we can go back to the tiles, so we can just take a look. Yeah, so it probably, what happens is that it takes the most recent one, so it's probably taking like this one. And this face was partially cropped, so it's not the best tile to be using for the face. Whereas this one is a really good tile to use. So from here, what you can do is just drag that in and you're going to get that piece in the right spot. And then you would just put a mask on that as well. In this case, I probably want the majority of it, so I'm going to just leave it as white. And I'm just going to erase the little border edges. And that's basically, we can take a look at that later maybe, but essentially the tiles get created. I just sort of mask out the edges with Python. That's how these are blended well together. So yeah, anyway, this is sort of doing it a little bit more manually. So this is looking a lot better, as you can see. I like the little plants in her hair more. I'm not really sure, but the face still, I think the original face was still better. And that was probably because ESRGAN had, it does something to the face to upres it. So I'm just going to leave that the way it is for now. But in terms of the surrounding area, it's definitely feeling a lot better. It even has some of these leaves looking better. So yeah, that's pretty much the process though for, majority of it. I'm on the wrong color. Okay, what am I doing? Yeah, like this area especially, I think. Yeah, it's really good at doing leaves. I think that it didn't do as good of a job as... Alright, I'm on the wrong brush, that's why. It's the thing about doing demos is that you start pressing weird buttons. Alright, anyway, so... Yeah, you're basically just pushing and pulling and trying to find what looks good. There's some areas that aren't going to look good. Again, like this foot. I don't think that there's any good feet. Let me just see. Yeah. So feet and hands are usually pretty difficult, so you might as well just leave it at the lower setting, and then I'm not going to paint the whole foot. I don't expect anyone else to really be painters, but you can definitely do a little things, like you can color pick with the airbrush on a new layer, sort of the bark, and then you can just, what am I doing? Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm defining the shapes a little bit better. And then if we go for a second pass, it might end up with a better result if we have a closer crop of the foot with a more, so we didn't really use any feet prompts here. So that's what we might want to do the next time around when we get up close. Also, you can paint out, like this line might be too harsh, like it's too dark. So you can just color pick the background and then airbrush that area a little bit. And then take the skin and then do that. Airbrush it out. So now it's blending a little bit nicer, which is more natural. For this style at least. Other styles you might want to have that line, but this one is a more natural sort of painting. And also, like this line is a little too dark. Anyway, I'm not going to go noodle around a little too much, but anyway, here it's already a lot better probably. Okay, what we can do is take the first pass and you can just toggle it on and off to check what you've done. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And then to get even more detail out of this, what I was recommending is, let's see. Actually, I don't really want to do that. We wanted to do the feet. I'll try to save time and only do this region. Then we might as well just erase out this foot because I'm focusing more on this foot. So from here we can just save this as a copy. Okay, I'm going to undo my cropping. So for this image, what we can do is just upload it. And now we can just rename this so we can copy the file name, and under grid preview you can paste it right here. This one actually takes the full path, so what you can do is go to the image and copy path, paste it there. Now we can grid preview this, so at 2048, that's going to be, yeah, I think that you should actually use the same ratio. We're going to do it like this. Yeah, so let's try this out. So what we can do from now is, alright, yeah, so I think if you have the same ratio, then it's going to be easier to place it in the image, because it'll end up, you know, when we went and looked at the padded image, it's going to have perfect amount. So you can go back to the grid upscaling and change test 3 to test 3 extra foot, I guess. And then the input image is going to be this piece, other piece. So now we can actually go reduce prompt count by 4. We can just turn that one off, leave everything else the same, and when we hit run, so it's going to ask us for 8 prompts, because let's see, so there's only 2 main grid pieces, but we're going to do the full prompts so that we can actually really call out the foot. And then as a bonus, we're going to detail these pieces up a little bit more. So for this one, I guess we'll do yeah, I'll speed up through this after we commented on the foot. So this one might be able to be like female foot. Yeah, we'll see how this works. I'm not really too sure yet. It looks like those feet were not very good, but it did upscale the plants at least. It's all good. Alright, so I only wanted to have the top 4, so I'm just going to put them in there like that. And then from here we can just make another group for detailing the bottom. Then just input those pieces. Alright, so this one looks kind of funky, so I'll actually get rid of that one. We'll only use these 3. And I'm just going to merge. No, actually, before I merge them, I'm just going to mask out the edges a little bit. Okay, it looks like this one is a little bit better. So that's good. Alright, well this foot is really funky looking. But anyway, so from here you do have to sort of figure out where it overlaps, but it's pretty easy. It's at the very bottom. And if you want to get really technical, you can check that way, but I think you just wanted to make a mask and fix that top edge. Yeah, now we have this, and then you can make a mask here so that you actually can mask out like what the detail looks like. Yeah, kind of like that low quality stuff a little bit more. And also this looked a little bit nicer, but I think the bark, it's a little different. I might like some of these details, but that area is nice. I like the plants more, the new plants are looking a lot better. So I'm just going to keep those. But yeah, the foot, still not a good foot. So we'll have to figure out what a better prompt is for feet. Anyway, so we can just keep on going, and that's pretty much what you do for the workflow. It is up-res, which is nice. And if you go over here, there was one step that we didn't do, which is face swapping, so we can just look into that after we take a look. This one I went through a little bit more with the upper part. There's a few different faces. I liked how this one blended in with the skin more. So how do you actually easily swap faces? What you can do is go back to the bonus tools area of my Colab, and there's a face recognition upscaling. And what you can do is take the starting output. Actually, what you can do instead of that is, since we've been working on this one, and we sort of do have a different face here, you can always just save a copy of this. Let's call it temp, and put that right here. So I'm gonna set up this face recognition tool. I'll do another video on more details with this. Okay, what I just remembered, what it does is it actually looks at all the images in the input image folder or whatever folder you have. So I'm just going to create a new folder called face and then put the template there, because I only wanted to run on this one image. So that's why I had switched that one up. Yep, and then that's fine. We'll just do this in case there's something there. So you don't really have to use the upscaling since we've already upscaled the image. That would just make it too high res. I might have to fix the script so that doesn't up res at a certain pixel ratio. But yeah, that's it. If you have a low res image, like if you didn't use a real ESRGAN, if it was under 1000 pixels, and it'll upscale that for you before running the face recognition. And sometimes it recognizes more than one face in the image, like the leaves become faces. So that's what this minimizer is for. So if you notice that there's faces being detected when you shouldn't be, you just put it at a high number. And if it doesn't detect anything, then you want it to lower the number. And then you can also set up the settings so it's the same ratio as our. This actually wouldn't affect our stuff, but it would do a higher resolution, just the same way as the upscaler is working. And then here, there's a different prompt, so you'll have to fill that out. You can put detail on the actual subject in here, since it's not so picky. And what the prompt actually combines with is under prompt text. So this is sort of a part of my main. Okay, yeah, batch prompting is the main area where this script does everything. So I have a prompts main. I'll have to talk about it in another video, but it's gonna use these. So before we were writing like these prompts as a separate text file, this one is this face recognition upscaler is using the prompt text main. So since we only have one image that we're running through it, it'll only be the first text prompt right there. It might be kind of confusing, but it's pretty good when you're batching. So Another video will explain why I set it up like that. But let me just click on run since we have it all set up. Okay, so if you have the face minimizer too high, it'll actually say that doesn't detect any faces, so you'll just have to lower it down until it detects something. So here it's detecting one face, which is what we want, but if you have it way too low, it's going to detect 5 faces. So it's kind of weird, but that's why there's a little strength dial there. Alright, so now it's just detecting 1, we'll let it go through. Alright, so here's the result. And the setting was at 0.7, so we can take a look at what it does and other values. But we'll do that in another video. So it says it saves the result here, but you can also just go to upscaled face. That's where it saved these ones, and just like the tile generation upscaler, it shows you the base image. So you can just download this if you want, instead of downloading the final. But yeah, the final is with the new generated face in the base image. And then also there's a close-up. This is actually higher resolution, so you might actually want this if you can also upscale this, and then you can Photoshop that one in, but we'll just take this image right here. Okay, I'm going to show in folder. And if we go back to Photoshop, we can just drag it in, and you see it's looking a little different now. Alright, let's toggle it on and off. Sometimes these faces are a little skewed, but I don't know, I kind of like it a little bit more. Okay, on Windows, if you press Control, Windows key and C, you can go from color to black and white mode. And it's an interesting way to just see the values and how they're working. Yeah, I'm kind of liking this one. So what you can also do to edit images is go to Filter Liquify. And then I feel like this is a little skewed. Okay, turn off the backdrop if you want. So yeah, you can do that too to edit the image, and there you go. So you can continue detailing the same way and manually painting out little awkward points. But that's basically it. And again, if you compare this to the original, so this was actually the original upscaled with the real ESRGAN. So you can see how much of a difference it makes. It's not going to be as pixelated. Like if we go back, I don't think I mentioned this is FastStone Image Viewer, and it's cool because you can click on 2 images, like this one and this one, and press P. So then it lets you compare the images as long as they're the same pixel ratio. Yeah, you can see like the original image was super pixelated. So compare that to those image upscalers, like this is real ESRGAN, and Gigapixel is the same thing. So they're still pretty good, but you can see like, especially the little flower bits, Stable Diffusion is adding a lot of info. And on the one that I had spent more time on, yeah, like the flower is even a little bit better. Yeah, it's pretty sweet how we can do this. Rendering used to take a lot of time, just be up all night trying to detail stuff. And here's the thing, right? Okay, so if we group this, So if we compare that to the original, just from a long, like an overall point of view, there's not really much change. It's really only when you zoom in and look at the details you see the difference. So yeah, it's a lot of time spent to get things to look good up close. It's kind of ridiculous. So it's nice to be able to just automate this more. And then you can spend more time on your composition and your lighting and getting things telling a better story and all that more important stuff. So I feel like this is a really good workflow for artists to get into. And I still have some other ideas I want to share. Like my Colab does a lot of stuff that I didn't show yet. That's all under batch prompting. That's sort of the main section. So hopefully I'll have time to explain what all this does, some of my ideas. This is my first video too, so it's a little rambly. Trying to get used to speaking. But yeah, oh yeah, here's something funny I just noticed. So this was another test I did. The settings were a little more creative and I didn't have as much of a guided prompt. So I had like a little face on the branch, which is kind of funny. So you might want to actually get these effects. Yeah, it would make a cool illustration, that's for sure. So to do that, I have some other examples. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but so where is it? Under grid upscaling, just try out the init strength, put it at like 0.3. Yeah, it'll be pretty crazy, but if you're only doing it on a few tiles, like 8 tiles, then it should be fine. And you notice that even, okay, I'm gonna have to get, let's say this one. Okay, that's funny. It's gonna have to be this one. So yeah, we've done it at a pretty small grid ratio, and obviously potentially get much bigger, but it's really unnecessary to go this far. What you can do, since we have this result right here, if you look, it's how many pixels is it? So this one actually isn't very high res at all, so 1280. Actually, what I would do is I would put this through real ESRGAN or gigapixel so that it's 2 or 3 times bigger. And how big would that be? So it's probably going to be this big when you double it. And then you can always run it through again, doing the same workflow, but since we have painted the details, it should be pretty solid. Like, the more detailed the base image is, the more solid the results are going to be, as long as your input strength isn't too low. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, anyway, the gigapixel and the real ESRGAN is going to do a better job since we have more actual detail in our painting. So that's how you get super resolution images from pretty much a simple Stable Diffusion result. Pretty sweet. Hopefully it helped you guys out. Take care.